Left-wingers of Reddit. What would you say your most right-leaning opinion is? That scrutinizing every $600 transaction that enters or exits my bank account is serious government overreach. Edit. I'm appreciative for the folks that explained that the scrutiny is not over every transaction over $600, but for every account that does over $600 in transactions total. Question. Does that make it any better? I support the idea that you need ID to vote. But with the caveat that the government needs to automatically issue a free federal ID card to all citizens. Social security numbers make for an awful national registry system and we need something better. I don't think you should need to register to vote, it should already be done. Edit. Voting days should also be a federal holiday, and ideally use a blockchain ledger. Forgiving student loans does nothing to address the actual issue of astronomically high college tuition prices. That local ordinances and taxes should favor small businesses rather than hinder them. I had every approval for a business license, but the property had a tax lien from the previous tenant and we couldn't get a license. The previous tenant was a local city hall. The city wouldn't give it to us because they literally owed themselves money. Every year we operated we would get a city inspection, explain the reason we didn't have a business license, watch them hang their head in shame and tell us to go about our way. Some of our language policing is insufferable and obnoxious. ETA. I went to bed and when I woke up this exploded. Thanks for the awards. However, I feel like I need to clarify. I am not a TERF. Fuck TERFs. I love and respect trans people. By insufferable, I am referring to words that don't need to be corrected, like unmanned, cockpit, homeless or chief executive. Nobody was making a fuss over these words, and striking them from our vocabulary seems like an empty gesture. It's the black box on the Instagram of gestures, self-serving and pointless. I like guns, and own a few. I still think folks should need a background check though. Damn, I thought this was hockey. I'm gonna go post it. I'm tired of the American trend over the last 15 years of putting everyone in either a left or right box. Boxes in which everyone has the same viewpoint on several totally different issues. I do think that borders need to be in a state of control and that immigration largely needs to be kept through legal channels, ideally. We should focus on fixing our own broke shit before dumping money into fixing other people's broke shit. That Latinx is stupid. Latino is general neutral when referring to more than one person or referring to an unnamed person. Just like Chico is boy, Chica is girl, and Chicos and be kids. Or guy can be a male in English, or a group of people can be referred to as guys. Forgiving student loans without first reforming education is a very bad idea because it will signal to lenders, academic institutions and students that the government is handing out free money. Only two of those three are going to win long term. Political correctness is not a real political issue. Total government control over markets is a bad idea. Cancel culture will make our society too fragile and end up hurting liberal politics in the long run. Most of the calls for canceling politicians or public figures are purely performative. I would much rather call the person out on their shit and give them a chance at changing their ways. I don't like the idea of throwing someone away in prison for a long time for a one-time mistake that isn't unforgivable, so why should I want to take away their shot at ordinary social life or career? Gentrification gets thrown around mostly as an excuse not to help urban areas. Lots of efforts to clean up litter, build better infrastructure, and get people to move into cities with vacant lots are shouted down as gentrification, when ultimately it helps to have a bigger tax base in your community. If you want to protect existing residents, then rent control is the way, not getting mad that a new apartment was built on the lot that's been derelict for 30 years. I hate when people start to lose an argument and bring up their race or sexuality when it has nothing to do with the conversation. Or the convo has nothing to do with race and they'll call you racist because you disagree with them. This doesn't seem controversial, but it is extremely controversial on left-wing Twitter lol. Excessive government control causes problems in a functioning society. That said, excess is subjective. That identity politics is killing our ability to focus on substantive changes to real problems in society like wage stagnation, global warming, strained infrastructure, poor school funding, etc. I'm not talking about ignoring privilege or keeping existing racist systems intact. But when it's literally the only thing many people want to talk about, or when progressives cannibalize their own for using the wrong term, or make everything a purity test of knowing the right authors and phrases etc., we just shoot ourselves in the foot. I still believe in America, it just needs some work. I'm okay with the death penalty under certain circumstances. This thread is a pretty good example that most of this screaming from the left and right is coming from the extremes and the most exaggerated talking points are being screamed about. It's unfortunate that it's being blasted into the middle where it seems like more of the reasonable, common sensible people are. Like, you can have your cake and eat it too, but nobody believes it because everyone's being told everything can only be black or white. Red or blue. The USA is truly divided. Edit. This gained a lot of traction. I really didn't expect that. I don't talk about politics much. I just want to say thank you for the awards and the civil discourse. I fucking loathe Hillary Clinton. Love knowing I can own a gun or guns. Don't own a gun, but I could. Lower my fucking taxes. At this point there are too many illegal firearms in the USA to ever stop private, law-abiding citizens from owning them, or else it would just be criminals armed with an unfair advantage. I saw a compromise proposed when talking about universal basic income. The idea was that everyone would have to serve the country for 4 years to be eligible. Not necessarily in the military, it could be civilian service like at a hospital or school, maybe working on infrastructure, but until you served you'd be ineligible to collect. That way citizens would earn their UB and build patriotism at the same time. Sounded like a fair compromise to me. Well-regulated capitalism is by far the best economic system. Our problem is our government has been captured by the super rich. Our regulation was so lax for so long that the government is now regulated by the capitalists instead of the other way around, like it is supposed to be. We should focus on the fiscal health of the USA over other random countries. It's messed up that guns are considered a partisan issue traditionally, but I guess it'd be guns. They're great. Nuclear power is one of the most powerful tools we have to fight global warming. If someone is illegally in your home, you should have the right to use lethal force. I'm libertarian, but I just wanted to come here to say that it is refreshing to see civil discussion and common sense common ground being shared by so many from a different political viewpoint. People we disagree with are allowed to have their opinions, and silencing them does nothing but make them think they're right. Real harsh penalties for repeat offenders. If immigrants commit heinous crimes, like mutilation, sexual assault, graphic abuse, murder, preying on children etc., I am totally fine with them being deported. In fact, I support it. Edit. Yes, I mean we should deport them after they serve prison time. I really hate witch hunting and this idea of political purity that the left partakes in. Everyone has a past. Everyone changes. Something you said 9 years ago shouldn't be punished for your current politics. People change over time. People should make an effort to learn the language of the country they've moved to. Enough that they can have basic interactions and deal with important things like retail transactions, health questions, basic paperwork etc. without assistance. I think it's sad to see kids being dragged around as translators for their parents. The free market isn't a bad thing in and of itself. It can provide people the opportunity to make a living in the way of their choosing and allows people to flex their creativity by coming up with new products and services. I do think there needs to be a better social safety net, universal Medicare, stronger regulations to keep the market truly open, etc. etc. Basically, I think the role of government is to support a free market economy that is open and fair. This includes providing certain essential services that should be motivated by a social need rather than a profit motivation. Nobody, not even the billionaires and millionaires, should be taxed on unrealized capital gains for the simple fact that it doesn't constitute a material change in wealth but is a change in the worth of their stake in the stock market. If they have not sold the stock, you are better off taxing the actual companies they have invested into rather than try to tax the investment itself. Taxing unrealized gains is the single biggest scam of the financial markets and the result of the biggest circle jerk and fundamental misunderstanding of how investments work. There are saner ways to tax wealth that does not fundamentally break the economy. You can fight me on this. This issue is as dumb as the anti-nuclear sentiment anyways. Most of current gun regulations are really ridiculous and do nothing to make anyone safer. The US should have a more controlled border and be selective of who is allowed move into the country. That under no pretext should the working class be disarmed. If you go far enough to the left you get your guns back. Balanced budgets and paying down deficits is the way. People who loot and riot during protests are stupid. All you do is hurt the small businesses around you who probably are out there protesting too. White men don't deserve to be hated for being white men. Which apparently isn't on the whole social rights and liberties quadrant, so apparently this isn't left anymore. Edit. Fixed poor writing. I prefer to keep the money I earn rather than handing it over to the government, which spends most of it in things of no benefit to me. Bring back lawn darts. Companies should be allowed to refuse service to whomever they want. But they should not be protected from the social, public backlash. I don't know about you, but if someone doesn't want to make me a wedding cake just because I'm gay, I want to know so I don't give them my money. Defunding the police was the dumbest slogan.